Hey, David Brewster here with the Brewster's Millions of Rants, and this is part two of Overdue Books. And I had some requests and some feedback, asking, feature some more, method books, instructional books, and educational material. And I'll admit, it's really overwhelming. I mean, there's thousands, if not tens of thousands, of instructional titles and books out there. And they're usually pretty expensive, so you don't want to waste $20 or $25 on a book if it isn't any good. And I've done that, numerous times where I would buy something hoping it would have, some licks or some new information. And I'd take it home and absorb it and read through it and think, God, I just wasted $20 on nothing. Here it is like the middle of November. So people start thinking about Christmas gifts and they start buying gift cards and things like that. So if you get a gift card for Christmas, say for Amazon or Barnes and Noble or something like that, I highly recommend, some of the books that I talked about in the first episode, which, featured some of my titles. Also the book Rock Guitar Secrets from Peter Fisher, that was in there too. And then I'm going to discuss, some more books in this episode. So, if you got some money burning a hole in your pocket or a gift card, burning a hole in your pocket, check out some of these books because, definitely I think all musicians, guitarists especially, but I think all musicians should have a library, sheet music, instructional books, or maybe just reference guides, and keep them together. You can buy an inexpensive bookshelf and keep all your, tab books and educational material together. And then anytime you're sitting around with your guitar and you're like, well, I don't know what to practice, what should I work on? Grab one of your books, and get busy. The first book I'm going to recommend, there's actually three I'm going to recommend, and I'm sure this is going to appear like I'm very biased and I'm just promoting, a magazine that I happen to write for. But there's a reason why I'm recommending these books. So the first one, this is just the book Guitar Player, which came out in 2015. And this is a great, great book. It's kind of a historical overview of Guitar Player magazine. There's tons of photographs, there's, some lesson material, there's stories, just basically about Guitar Player magazine, kind of the history of where it all began. And I'm a huge, fan of Guitar Player magazine, even before I started writing, lessons and articles for them. And the fact that I'm doing that now, in my career as a musician, is blowing my mind because I got a guitar, and Guitar Player magazine really was one of my early resources. I would read the interviews, I would read the lessons, and they didn't really have songs, which at first kind of confused me. But I remember, older guitarists told me, they were like, well, don't worry so much about the songs. The songs will come. That magazine will help you understand what it means to be a musician. And when they would tell me stuff like that, I thought, okay, there's obviously something I'm missing here. So I started buying it. And then the next thing I knew, I was an avid reader and I loved, Guitar Player. Still do. But this is a great book from 2015. Lots of history, lots of photos, which is kind of interesting to kind of look through, all the different years of Guitar Player magazine. All right, next up is the Guitar Player book from 2007. And this is another, kind of overview and kind of a historical collection of all these great things from Guitar Player magazine. It talks about gear, talks about musicians. There actually are, some lesson samples and just a lot of great information, really interesting articles. They literally are kind of, transposing or transcribing, like full pages from the magazine where you can kind of get a feel of some of those older, Guitar Player issues. There's Tommy Tedesco, that's so cool. And it's just interesting, it kind of breaks down, different issues and who was on the cover and kind of little excerpts from the interviews with different guitarists. And if you like Guitar Player magazine or you just love the guitar, there's so much history and information just hiding in this innocent looking little book. And yeah, I love that one. It's great. The next one here, this is Secrets from the Masters from 1992, yet another Guitar Player book. And this one's also really interesting. It has extended interviews with a whole bunch of people. There's Carl Perkins, I just flipped past Vernon Reid, Keith Richards, there's Santana, Alan Halsworth, Michael Hedges, George Harrison, Jim Hall, Billy Gibbons, Jerry Garcia, The Edge, Ry Cooder. I mean, everybody's in this book. And this is more or less complete interviews, or, part of an interview from, say, like the 70s or the 80s mixed with part of an interview from like the 80s or 90s. So it's just a really good kind of collection of interviews, more insight from players. And in my personal opinion, if you put these three books together, you have a lot of guitar player history, a lot of guitar player information. And those are definitely, like part of the prized area of my library, because there's so much, there's a lot of paper there too. It's kind of heavy, but there's so much hiding in these books. I highly recommend these. And last but not least, I've had so many people ask me, from students to complete strangers, in person, online, in lessons, backstage at a gig. I've had so many people ask me about this. I mean, hundreds of people. And I've recommended this book hundreds of times. But I've had so many people ask, like, what's a good music theory book? And I have 4, maybe 5 in my library. But this is the one I always recommend. It's Tom Kolb. It's from Leonard. It's music theory. It's the one with the guitar on the front. And it's literally the best music theory method I've found for guitarists. And really, it covers everything that I learned in school and then some. But you've got intervals and chord construction and scales and modes and all this stuff. And it's a really good book. One other thing I like about it is there are like little tests throughout the book, almost like you'd have, like when you were in high school. So there's like ear training tests and, scale studies and things like that. So you literally are kind of doing, book work from the book itself. And really, really interesting. And I really like the title for sure. It's a great one. It's going to wrap this look at some recommended books, perfect for, holiday, gift ideas for yourself or for a musician, in your family or somebody. And there's tons more. I mean, I have a big library, so I can definitely make some more, episodes or versions of this, just recommending, good resources and good educational material and just interesting things to read. These guitar player books are great to just sit around and just read, absorb, these things from Chet Atkins and Michael Hedges and Jim Hall. And so leave some feedback and some comments. Please subscribe to Late Night Lessons, and I'll be back before you know it with more lessons and material. Thank you.